And then with WordPress that you download yourself into your own machine, there is no fee. Download the software and then you install it on your own site. Okay, let's wait for the screens up with my clicking through. Okay, there you go. So I focused a little bit more on the hosting the software yourself in preparing for this, and so that's some of the material I put up on the website lonhauser.com under session 1. I have some links to some of these things I saw, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other links are here, but they have a 5-minute do-it-yourself install instructions. And even though they say it's 5 minutes, even when you know what you're doing, you're not going to go that fast unless you're trying to prove something. So normally it takes you 10 to 20 minutes. And if you haven't done it before, I'm sure you'll go to even slower pace. But the instructions are pretty straightforward. And then some of the hosting companies, for example, like Bluehost.com is a web hosting company, and you can put whatever you want up there. They have their own shortcut way of installing WordPress on their hosting company. So in a way, they're helping you get it installed without you having to go through the famous 5-minute do-it-yourself install instructions. So these are the install instructions here. We don't need to study them in detail, but they have mostly a short version of it and a long version of it, in case you want to know all the details. But you download the package. You can download it as a zip file for Windows machines and Mac machines. There's also a way to download it as a compressed file where you can take it to a Linux server and uncompress it there. Don't have to. It's just you're going to have to FTP up some 1,300 files, and that's the only difference. You have to go into WordPress. You have to go to your database. I'm going to show you this so you can see what it is. You'll see whether it's scary to you or not scary. But we'll take a look at what a MySQL database looks like. But it's actually pretty easy to set up once you have the instructions, but they don't tell you how to do that here. They assume you know how to do that. Then there's a text file that you have to edit, rename and edit. And in the text file, you're put in the login for the database. All the information of what the database name is and what the login is for it. And then you copy all the files up, and then you run it. And the first time you run it, it asks you for a password for your site, and then you start using it. So it almost sounds like it's going to take 5 minutes. Probably the slow point for most people, it would be number 2, because they don't know what that is, and they've never done it before. If you haven't unzipped the WordPress file, then I definitely suggest you use WordPress.com. If you've never unzipped the file or uploaded or downloaded a file from a website, it's not something hard to learn. It's just if you haven't done it, maybe you need to go learn those things first before you want to go into hosting it yourself. Again, the company itself will have an installation. There's a 4-minute video that shows how they do it with their own little script installer. In fact, the fellow spends more time talking about what he's going to do than he does and to set it up. So they bypass all these instructions for you. You don't have to do any of them. All right. So let's take a look at databases. Okay, so this is a user interface to see databases. So WordPress creates this database for you. You don't have to do anything more than to tell your hosting company that you want a database and give it a name. There it is, the name right there. So I gave it that name, and then when I went through the steps for WordPress, that was step number 2 I had to do, create the name. WordPress actually generated all these files. So this brings up an important point about hosting it yourself. This is where all your data is, and this is what we mean by content management system. All my WordPress posts and revisions are in this file right here. You actually can see what I did today. So what they do, what their column names are, why they create records, I don't really care unless I really want to get in behind the scenes and do something unusual that I can't do through the front end. But basically, this runs on its own. It looks like I uploaded a graphic image. I remember doing that. Apparently, they write a record in here for that step. I remember uploading that file today. And I did some editing that shows you the edits. And so this actual database has to be protected. The software that you download, that should protect it, but at any point in time, if you lost that, you can just get it again from WordPress.org. And you set it back up again. But the data is in this database. So this is the important part, to have this backed up. So most of the hosting companies have a backup option, and WordPress.com does that automatically for you, so you can get the information back. But double check to see how they do all that. But this is the important part. This has all your information in it. In fact, if we go to Lon Hosford, Lon blog, this one's an old, I've been blogging for when he invented it. And we can see in here there's let's give me some numbers here. 3,200 records in this database alone. And these are all the blogging articles, revisions to them, all that information's in here. If I lost this, I've lost my blog completely. So occasionally I back it up and download it, and I always make a download myself. And they're really easy to do once you learn these things. If you want to back it up yourself, what you usually do, and this is not training here, this is just to give you the feel for hosting it yourself, is you go to the actual database itself, which is the full name of it, username and then the database name. You go to export, and you just download it to your local machine. And then you have a copy of it. It gives you a big, gigantic text file. So if it's not even the one I have, which is kind of large, it just downloads in a few seconds, and it's done. And then I have these copies locally. And then, of course, the hosting company does its own backup. All right, so that's the database side of it. And there's one other piece to it. This is a control panel for hosting website. This is for host.com. They're very similar because they all use the same software package in general, and then they customize it for doing the hosting management administrator. They call it cPanel. It's a common name for it. And that's has all these icons that you can use. And so the one thing that I had to do as step number 2 was to go down to databases, and there's two kinds of done, PostgreSQL and MySQL, and these are all the icons for it. And I had to go to this point right here. And this is the actual where you can look at the databases once they're created. This is where you actually create them. And this is where I created the database. I typed in the name. So step 2, I created a name right here. And I hit create. Then I created a user, which I do down here with the password. That's when I got done with that, I associated a database with the user here. And when I did that, I checked all privileges. And that means that I can do all the things I want to do to the database. So WordPress wants the user to be able to do that. So that's really the step 2 if you're actually going to do it yourself and you want to code on your own website. Where is there? Actually, I'm clicking around here, I'm going to drive you crazy. Right here, step number 2. Create a database for WordPress on your web server as a MySQL user who has all privileges for accessing and modifying it. And that you do through your control panel for your hosting company. They all actually look exactly like this because none of them want to actually pay for their own software. They use the standard open source version of this. And you can see I have a lot of databases on here and a lot of users, but basically you create the database. You're not creating anything more than the name. Once you've created it, then you have to create a user, got your password, all this stuff has to be written down, and then you associate that user with the database, and when you hit the add button, you check all privileges. That's probably the part that most people, they don't know what's going on here, and they don't really want to do that step, and it scares them away. Once you're done with that, the other part would be just FTPing the information up to your server. So this is one of the tools that's on your control panel for hosting, and what this is showing us is the file structure of the folder one down. Let me go up one folder. This is the actual root folder on the server. So these are the files that were in it before. And Jacob had asked the question, I'm afraid if I set this up, I'm going to destroy all the hard work I did for creating my first running site. I might destroy it. I don't know what I'm going to do. So what I decided to do is to put the WordPress files into its own folder. So if we come to the next step, well, actually, you do this step before you upload it, but you can do it after you upload it. I'll come back to this step. I should have shown you that one, but you upload it to your server, and then where was that? Over here, and you can put it in your own folder, and it will run happily in there. It's when you go to move it, it becomes a little tricky. There's a couple steps you have to do to move it to a different folder. Or you could put it in the root folder. So your entire website is just a WordPress website. So in this case, it's a subfolder. And I have it running right here. There it is. There's the actual domain name. There's the subfolder right here. And then there's a folder called WP-admin, and that's actually the line you put in, and it will ask you for all the login information at that point. The step that I skipped, and it's not important that you know all these steps right now, but let me go back over here. I think this will let me do it. So we go to the subfolder here, and we'll actually see. So this is all what you downloaded from WordPress.org and then unzipped and then uploaded. Everything that's in here. So this is all code that they wrote. But this file gets renamed. It has a .-sample after it. You rename it, and I think I can view it here. And right here, you edit this part. So you usually do that before you upload it, but it doesn't matter when. You got to do this before you open the WordPress site up for the first time. And basically, we're just taking the passwords and the name of the database and just putting them in where there's probably some place marker text right in these fields right here. They have place marker text for the username and the password, the database name. Just these three, actually. They're the only three you have to update. And you save that, and then you upload that. So that is step number 3, edit that file. So step number 2 is to get the database up with the username and the password and all privileges on your hosting company. And then step number 3 is to rename this file from the download and edit it for those 3 pieces of information. Then you upload the whole thing to a folder on your website. Then you actually launch it. You actually go to the folder that it's in. In this case, it's in the root folder of example.com, or it could be in a subfolder. And when you do that, it'll bring up a screen saying, what do you want for the login administrative password? And so that is the complete do-it-yourself. I'm actually going to build it from scratch. I want to control the whole process. And I do that. I mean, that's if someone asks me to do it, I do it that way. And then the next level would be, again, I want to have it on my own hosting company. I don't want to have it at WordPress.com for whatever reason. Most of the hosting companies have a script or something that you just fill in the information that we had to do manually here, and it generates all this for you. And then when you're done, it's installed and you're ready to go.